There are foreigners fighting for Ukraine in this war, but their numbers are small. They are not sent by the governments. They come as volunteers, driven by a personal sense of justice and a desire to help. One of them is a British man with the callsign Caesar. He serves in the International Legion, fighting not only for Ukraine, but for the values Ukrainian struggle represents. Caesar doesn't speak much, but his actions speak louder than words. You're listening to the Explain Ukraine podcast. My name is Volodymyr Yermolenko. I'm a Ukrainian philosopher, the chief editor of UkraineWorld and the president of PEN Ukraine. UkraineWorld is an English-language media outlet exploring Ukraine and its connections to the wider world. It is run by Internews Ukraine. You can support our work on Patreon. Your help is vital as we rely heavily on crowdfunding. You can also contribute to our volunteer missions to frontline areas in Ukraine, where we deliver aid to both soldiers and civilians. Donations are welcome via PayPal. All the links are in the episode description. So let's begin. Caesar, welcome to this podcast.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Tell me about yourself. What is your background and how you decided to move to Ukraine and help Ukraine fight against Russia?
My background, I'm 58 years old. My early years were in the military back in the UK in the parachute regiment. So I do have a little bit of history there with military knowledge. For me, coming to Ukraine, I just seen 1939 happening all over again, and the West's failure to react to a problem which was right in front of them yet again.
When you compare with the situation now with 1939, do you also compare the situation of Britain, which felt alone for a very long time and tried to persuade the United States to join the war effort, with the situation of Ukraine, for example?
Yes, the West has, for some reason, always been on the back foot. It's all too political for me. It's sort of beyond my remit. But from what I see, the West leaves it until the first shots are fired, and then they react. They never want to go on the front foot. But we have weapons and munitions coming into the country, which is all well and good. But on the ground is where we need it more so. We need ammunition and more of it. We struggle with the amount of ammunition that we do receive.
When you came to Ukraine and when you started participating in the battles, were you surprised in the way how the war has changed? Or probably is there something that you expected and it appeared completely different in the way how the war is fought now?
From what I've seen, it has changed very much so. The Ukrainians, I have all admiration to them for what they're up against, and the way they have responded and held the lines has been absolutely. I've got all admiration to the system, to the country.
But you're in the International Legion, and there are other people from other countries who also joined it. Can you tell me a little bit about the surroundings, about these friends and comrades that you have now? What motivates them? What countries are they from? Why they decided to go to Ukraine and help Ukrainian army?
I think most of the guys that have come from all different parts of the world, predominantly South America. There seems to be a lot of Brazilians, Colombians, but we do have a really good mix of guys from all over the world. and I think they have the same sentiment as myself. Um, Ukraine is a sovereign country, just like any other sovereign country. There is nobody should be ruling with an iron fist, um, barking orders at another sovereign country, telling them what they can and can't do.
And how Ukrainians perceive you, how you feel the contact with Ukrainians actually. Do you see openness, or do you see probably a little bit of I don't know, distance from Ukrainians to the international legion and to international soldiers? How do you see the communication between you and the Ukrainian regiments?
I don't think there's so much of a problem. Obviously, there's a language issue, but being military guys, that's never really a problem. I'm a sergeant with the mortar platoon, and most of the platoon is Ukrainian. So, and with very few English speakers. But we manage, and we've been managing for the last 2 years since I've been a part of the platoon. There hasn't been any dramas with us. We get on like brothers.
Do you communicate? How do you communicate? Do you communicate? Do you have you learned some Ukrainian words? Do you communicate by signs, by gestures, or do they learn some English words?
Um, I've been learning a lot of the language that I need to know to use on the front line, with orders to shoot and correction of the mortar and things like that. But a lot of the guys have been picking up English phrases, English words from myself.
And how can you explain the what is happening on the battlefield? Because everybody is talking about drones and how they are changing the reality, but you're still using a very old type weapon as a mortar gun. And how these more older types of weapons and the new types of weapons like drones, how they interact with each other.
Well, obviously, the drone team that we work with, there are eye in the sky. We don't reuse old school ONS maps anymore, which we have a computerized system now that does that for you. Uh, as as far as the weapons itself, the 120 mortar, the 82 millimeter mortar, yes, it's old school, but we're out in the open under a threat all the time by enemy drones, FPVs. So it's really, really difficult for us because we're out in the open. Unlike some of the guys who are in the infantry side, where they're in a trench and they have at least some part cover, whereas we don't.
Do I understand correctly that the most danger is now for soldiers is coming from the sky, is coming from above, from the drones, and not ahead, not from another soldier of the enemy army who will approach you?
Yes, a great percentage of KIAs and injuries are caused by the drone threat and artillery. Um, Very little is caused by hand to hand combat these days.
And if you, for example, approached by some person from Britain who is thinking how to develop new technologies and prepare Britain and Europe for the future wars, what would you tell them?
It's a very difficult one because technology moves so fast, and with drones and drone technology, the threat of those, it's difficult unless you're someone who is really into their computers and into that side of the technology. The way forward is to possibly you've just got to keep 1 foot ahead of the game, or one step ahead of the game. You've got to pick up on someone else's technology to break it down. Unfortunately, that's always going to be the case.
How do you see the evolution of technology in this war? For example, when you first came, what was the usage of drones compared to where we are now?
The drone threat was, when I first came over here, was more of an eye in the sky, um, directly in contact with your heavy artillery. So they would be guiding on artillery pieces to shoot at our positions. But now they've moved on immensely with the capability of dropping multiple rounds from drones, FPVs with 120 shells attached. So it has evolved that way. So it's a excuse me, it's a very different scenario now.
So can we say that initially drones were used primarily to get the information, as you say, an eye in the sky, and now they're increasingly a combat drones. Is kind of a shell, is a substitution of a shell that is more intelligent, that is more smart, that looks better and sees better.
Well, with the drones carrying armaments, you can get more direct hits than you can do guiding on artillery pieces with an eye in the sky. So you can end up with a better rate of fire and a better kill rate.
I've heard a lot about these wire drones that Russians are using, Ukrainians are using. So the drones with actually a cable. Do you see that in your part of the battlefield?
Yes. We do have obviously optic guided missiles now, or drones, which we've now sort of moved on to try and combat that threat. So there's many more drone nets covering access routes in and out of positions. Whether or not they can come up with a solution to try and break down that system of using optical wires, I don't know. It's that one is beyond me. We have to just keep on fighting the way we do until the super nerds and the tech guys come up with more solutions.
So just to explain to our listeners, initially drones and still a big number of drones are managed, administered through the radio waves, right? And there is a big antidote, the radio electronic warfare. But now there is increasingly drones are having wires, the optic wires, and therefore they are immune to radio electronic warfare. So you can basically not jam it. And what both sides are inventing, Ukrainians are inventing, is just physical nets that protect physically the positions from these drones. Is that correct?
Yes. Until somebody comes up with a solution to combat those type of drones, the situation is just going to get worse. The amount of casualties will get worse because we can't combat that. We're back down to shotguns. Our team uses shotguns now to try and take out the drones. Instead of wasting a magazine of 30 rounds from an AK, which you're going to be hard pushed to hit a drone with an AK. So we bought in a load of shotguns, which gives you at least a fighting chance.
AK is Kalashnikov, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it's just to explain to our listeners. Okay, how would you describe, I don't know if you can describe it, but the differences between how Russians wage the war and how Ukrainians wage the war? Because from what I hear from Ukrainian soldiers, is that Russians do not value the lives of their soldiers. Ukrainians are much more careful about the lives of our soldiers, and Russians are just a lot of soldiers, just bodies that go and they die and they leave them
Yes,
in the
yeah.
fields. Is that true?
Very much so. Yes, their high command have. It seems to be very little structure on the ground. Um, a lot of those Russian guys are just used as cannon fodder. So they're trying to do. Um, they're trying to win a war by using sheer numbers. Um, but whereas our guys, we have to be more selective with our targets because of the amount of ammunition that we have. We can't throw 20 rounds or waste 20 rounds at a Russian position, whereas the Russians will waste 100 rounds to our 20. So we have to be very selective on what we do and how we control the battlefield.
Do you know how they think, how Russians think? Because the battlefield is very transparent, and there is a lot of intelligence, and basically Ukrainians can listen to what Russians are talking about, and Russians are listening to what Ukrainians are talking about. Do you have any idea of how the soldiers and their commanders think, what they want to achieve in Ukraine, how they want to wage the war, etc.?
I think because of the Russian officers in charge of planning any sort of battles or any maneuvers, I think they've not been in a conflict like this. So I don't think and I don't believe that they have the skill set to actually wage that type of war. Um, from what I see and on the ground, their officers are way behind the times in um, the way they conduct themselves or the way they use a military force. Military tactics have moved on so much over the years, and I still think that they're way behind with their technology. They're way behind with their maneuvers, and you can see that on the ground.
No, it's very interesting because on the other hand, we see that they use new technologies like what we just described, these wire drones. So it's very important how Ukrainians are adapting. Tell me about how you perceive Ukrainians, how you perceive Ukrainian soldiers, because sometimes we we hear actually self-estimation. What Ukrainian soldiers tell me that they consider themselves as more innovative and more adaptive and more fast in technology change than the Russian ones. How you see that adaptability and innovation on the Ukrainian side?
From the Ukrainian side, like I said, from what we've had to deal with in the short period of time, um, coming up with the new technologies to combat this, to combat that, um, it's almost we're on the back foot until something happens, and then the speed that we react to it is admirable. I know that we have the West to thank for a lot of modern technology. The Russians are obviously getting their technology in from China and Iran and places like that. So it's almost like a tit for tat type warfare. Someone comes up with a new idea, and then we have to combat it, and then we adjust our way of thinking to try and get one step ahead of the game.
Do you see Ukraine right now as one of the biggest war technology innovator in the world?
It's getting to be that way. Yes. I don't think that anybody really appreciates or understands what's actually going on out here. I think the West is looking at this as maybe some sort of testing ground for new technology and the way new battles and new wars are going to be fought. So I think everybody is looking at Ukraine as their own little personal testing ground, the West.
But on the other hand, what I hear, for example, when Ukrainian soldiers are invited for kind of a new education to the NATO countries, I see the stories that at some point it's Ukrainians who start teaching their NATO colleagues, let's say in France or Germany or Czech Republic or Britain or United States, or the other way, instead of the other way around. Do you agree?
Yes, yes. Obviously, a lot of the guys have been to different countries and developing their skill set in the West, in the UK, Germany, etc., which is really beneficial for Ukraine. It's a way of moving forward really quickly. You've always got to be one step ahead of the game. You've got to be first to the finish line, and the guys over here have picked up on the technology so quickly. It's unbelievable.
Tell me a little bit how people around you in your home country, how your family perceives that you just moved here. So you probably are in the contact with your friends or with your family members back home. What was their reaction initially, and what is their reaction now, and what they ask you, and what do you tell them actually?
Um, as far as my family, yeah, my family really do miss me. I miss them dreadfully as well. But I have a job to do. They understand that. And they understand that it's for their benefit at the end of the day. My friends, a lot of my friends, they just think I'm too old and too crazy, but uh, I've got skills that are better off suited here than they are sat on a sofa back at home.
That's precisely what I'm asking, because you say some of your friends think that you're too crazy, but actually, as you say, well, this is probably a duty also of Europeans, if not coming on the battlefield here, but at least think deeply about how people can help Ukraine, how can people, because it's also the Europe's war. It's a war where the destiny of Europe will be solved, and I do feel that there is little understanding of that, even in countries which are very sympathetical to Ukraine. I feel that there is not enough of understanding of that. Will you agree?
Yes, you have. If Ukraine falls, and I know it won't, that leaves the door open for Putin to then steamroll into Moldova, Romania, and when will it stop? It's we don't live in an age of Roman times anymore, where people just steamrolled through other countries and took what they wanted, and it's just a violation of everyone's human rights.
You are near Kharkiv, and Kharkiv is a very interesting and big city, and one of the most important and interesting Ukrainian cities. Can you tell me a little bit, if you had a chance to be around Kharkiv and its neighborhoods, uh, because we see a lot of filming. Well, not a lot of, but some filming from in the international media. Recently, there was a clip from the American media that showed allegedly Kharkiv after the strike, and which was not Kharkiv at all. It was, I don't know, some city in other part of the world. So people are really even confusing geography.
Yeah.
What is Kharkiv for you? Can you tell me?
Kharkiv is a beautiful city. I've been there many times. Likewise with Kiev and Lviv, but they're the major cities that do get targeted quite often. I've been fighting in many areas of the front line, from Liman area down to Pokrovsk, uh, Toretsk, uh, Chavez Yar. So I've been to many areas where the fighting is hard and intense. Um, I've seen quite a bit, but it's the threat to the civilians that really that really gets to me. But we all know what Russia is capable of. We've seen that back in Aleppo, where it was just 10 years of total destruction. You kill the will of the people, then things change. Once the will of the people, once they've lost that, that's when people start surrendering.
Do you feel that Russians succeed in killing the will of Ukrainians? Because when I go to Kharkiv, I don't feel it at all, despite the fact that it's 40 kilometers from the Russian border. It's shelled regularly by the Russian, even not so much artillery right now, but rockets, drones, and gliding bombs. And there is a big part of destruction, although it's not like in ruins. So there is a vibrant life. There are lots of people in the city, and there is a vibrant cultural life. And yeah, I don't feel like Russians succeed in breaking the will of Ukrainians. Do you?
I don't see that happening. The everybody just goes around as normal, doing their daily business. It's just unfortunate that when drones come in and when missiles come in, there is going to be civilian losses. Um, and most of these targets that the Russians say are military targets, they're not. They're schools, hospitals, public buildings, shopping centres, and this is just it's just a total abuse of someone's power.
Yes, this is true. And how do you explain this willingness of Russians basically to kill civilians and to target civilian targets? Do you think that in this way they try to break the will of Ukrainians, or they just do it because they can, or they just don't care, or they have imprecise weapons? Do you explain it somehow in your head, in your mind?
I think it's a bit of both. I think they're trying to kill the will of the people, but their ammunition is just so indiscriminate. It doesn't matter what they hit. Anything is a target to them. We've had ambulances targeted, the fire service, so they don't really care. It's beyond the guys on the ground. They just take their orders and they just let those missiles go wherever they want to go. There's no specific target. No military installations are being targeted. It's just purely civilian.
Yeah, this is also my impression. So you said that you've been to many difficult places, and all these places are on the radars of Ukrainian media. Pokrovsk, very difficult. Chasiv Yar, you mentioned. Liman. What was the most difficult for you? What was the most difficult experience for you?
I think they've all been difficult in the same way for me. Being in the mortar platoon, I'm out in the open, um, So they've all been the same for me. One of our last positions in Pokrovsk, which I was in, that got targeted by about 5 FPV drones as well as heavy artillery. The blindage was blown up. I was trying to get through a tunnel to try and retrieve our mortar, and another FPV came in and blew me back through the tunnel. One of our guys was injured there. On our other team, 2 guys were injured by an FPV drone on a different blindage. So the threat is very high. It's I think that was probably one of the worst experiences.
When you have this experience, do you tell to yourself, well, look, okay, I've tried enough. I'm a foreigner. This is not my war. I will rather come back home to my kids and grandchildren, and we'll try to help Ukraine in a different way. But I sacrificed a lot already, and I'm not a Ukrainian citizen. I'm free to go. Do you have some ideas of that kind?
Yeah, ultimately, this is my choice to be here. I do not like bullies, for starters, and that's all I see that Putin is. He's just a bully, a psychotic old man who needs to be locked up. Like I said, I'm 58 years old, but I still have enough fight in me, and I still have the belief that humanity, or there is still some sort of sensible humanity left, or I keep hoping.
When you come back home after the war, and we all hope, of course, that we will win this war, what is the most important thing you will carry with you when you're asked, okay, but what did this experience give to you? What will you reply?
Well, I'm here for the long term. I'm here until that Victory Day parade. They can't get rid of me yet. I have experience to guide the young guys, and like I say, if I can play my small part to help win this war, and then I'm happy. I've done my part. I've done my bit.
Maybe my last question: why your call sign is Caesar?
Why the call sign Caesar?
Yeah.
When I was coming through my training, it was one of the guys that he just mentioned, you could be Caesar.
Okay.
I think whether it would be my age, because I look ancient, I don't know.
So yeah, the Caesar was a good person on the battlefield first, before becoming a political figure. Thank you so much, Caesar, for everything that you do, and I'm so inspired by your experience and your sacrifice and your choice. And thank you for this conversation.
It's my pleasure to be here.
This was a podcast explaining Ukraine by UkraineWorld, an English language media outlet exploring Ukraine and its connections to the wider world. UkraineWorld is run by Internews Ukraine, and my name is Volodymyr Yermolenko. I am a Ukrainian philosopher, the chief editor of UkraineWorld, and the president of PEN Ukraine. My guest today was a British man with the call sign Caesar, who fights in the International Legion for Ukraine. Let me remind you that you can support our work on Patreon. Your support is vital as we rely heavily on crowdfunding. You can also contribute to our volunteer missions to frontline areas in Ukraine, where we deliver aid to both soldiers and civilians. Donations are welcome via PayPal. All the links are in the episode description. Thank you for listening. Stay with us and stand with Ukraine.